Hello Obophiles! I'm Danny Cruz and this is the first video in a series of videos where we will learn how to play the oboe from the ground up, from beginner level. This is a video for beginners learning how to play the oboe or teachers who want some new tips on how to teach beginners how to play the oboe. So let's get started. Okay, so you might have just gotten your oboe from your school, or maybe you bought an oboe, but either way, you just put it together and you're really excited to play it. Oh wait, by the way, if you don't know how to put your oboe together yet, check out this video that I made either in these top corners or the link is in the description below, where I talk about the parts of the oboe, how to take care of your oboe, how to clean your oboe, and how to put it together. So, if you're not quite at the playing level yet, go check out that video and then come right back. Alright, but you're super excited to play, you're ready to blow on this oboe, and we're ready to play some beautiful music, and wait! Before you just jump in and start playing, you need to learn a lot about the instrument and how to do things so you don't develop bad habits. I should really go practice. That's exactly correct. So we're going to talk about in this video, posture, hand position, breathing, and then we'll talk about the reed and how to get some sound out of it, and then we'll even learn your first 3 notes. Alright, so let's put the oboe down and talk about posture first. With most things with playing the oboe, we want to be strong, but relaxed and flexible. And posture is no different. We don't want to be super straight and rigid and just like artificially tall, and we don't want to be collapsed or anything. We just want to have a natural, strong stance to ourselves. If you're in a chair, you want to make sure that your feet are flat on the ground to give you a firm base. And if you're sitting, you want to make sure that you're sitting on your sit bones so you can balance back and forth. Now you're not going to be on your tailbone, you don't want your spine to collapse, and you don't want to be so rigid with your spine facing flexed forward to where you don't have anywhere to go. We don't want to be all up with our stance, we just want to be relaxed and strong. From the side, that looks like this. Nice downward slope shoulders, just ready to play the oboe. You may also think about having someone imaginarily taking a piece of thread or floss or something and tying it to your skull and raising your skull to make you taller. Now again, we don't want to have a flexed back, arched backwards like this. Just in a relaxed position, just as tall as you can sit. Now that we've talked about the posture, let's talk about how to hold the instrument. When I'm teaching my beginners how to hold the oboe, I'll take the reed out first of all. We don't want any damage to the reed. And I'll have them hold the bell of the oboe with their left hand. That way they can use their right hand thumb and place it under the thumb rest. We don't want the thumb rest to be out by the nail, and we don't want it to be towards the palm past the first knuckle. I don't want it to be on the knuckle either. I want to be just barely on the nail side of the knuckle and kind of move back and forth until you find a nice position that feels good. Then you want to flex the wrist back and forth until you find an angle, until you find an angle where you can put the fingers on the keys comfortably with a gentle curve. Now it's easy to get the gentle curve if you think about not putting the fleshy part of the pad on the keys, nor putting the fingers on the keys too close to the nail, but instead putting them just in the right spot on this flat plateau of the fingertip. Put your fingertip on the keys, they'll be nice and curved, and you know you've got control over it when your pinky is curved as well. Okay, now, gradually you can start to take the left hand away until the right hand thumb gets used to the weight. Be careful though, because if you let go completely, the oboe will want to rock forward. So if anything, you can put it on the knee, and then you can kind of get control over it. Be careful as well, I'll take my hair out of the way, to not be flexing this part of the back to raise the shoulder. Keep your back relaxed, and you're just lifting the oboe with the bicep muscle. When that's easy and under control, you can take your first finger of the left hand and put it on the first key at the top here, covering the hole, and we call this key the B key, and the reason why will become abundantly clear in just a moment. When you get your finger there, you can push towards your body and balance the oboe back and forth. When you find a good angle for the oboe, you can put your other fingers of the left hand on the keys as well, remembering to gently curve them and using your fingertips to feel the holes in front of the keys. Your thumb goes back here on the wood, and we don't want to squeeze anything, we just want to gently place it. Now at this stage, we want to get a good angle and approach to the oboe, and we want to make sure we're never bringing the head to the oboe, but instead always the oboe to the head. You are the master of this instrument. This instrument does not control you. Now, let's talk about the pinkies for just a moment. You want to be able to access all the keys with the pinky, even though we might not be playing them for a while. We definitely don't want the pinkies behind any keys. I've seen that a lot, so be careful about that. An exercise I like to do is just to play, or not play, but press each one of these pinky keys one by one, just getting used to where they are and getting the flexibility of the wrist and the hand so that you're not hurting yourself later on. Okay, it might take a couple practice sessions just putting the oboe together and practicing holding it, and that's fine. But when you're ready to move on from that, we can talk about breathing. So breathing on the oboe is important because it's a woodwind instrument, and a lot of oboes aren't even made out of wood, so wind is the most important part of playing the oboe. I think that checks out. Okay, so we want the breath to be relaxed and very full. We're going to expand the lower abdomen cavity, like the tummy area, also the ribs, and also the chest a little bit. We're not going to raise the shoulders though because there's no air cavity in there. I can't put any air in my shoulders. So that breath is going to be quiet and relaxed and looks like this. Here's what it doesn't look like. That's not a good breath. If you want to check if your breath is relaxed and full enough, you can put your hand in front of your mouth. And if you get that low sound, you know you're taking in a really relaxed and deep breath. And that's a good test. If you get the high sound, that's not what we want. That's not a good breath. So now that we've got the breath under control, it's time to talk about the reed. The reed is the part that makes the sound happen. It's important to soak your reed before you play it. I usually give my students a pill container like this, or I tell them to get one. They're free, usually at any pharmacy. And you can put some water in it. A lot of other people use shot glasses or cups, and those work fine too. You want to put your reed carefully into the reed soaker and leave it in the water for about a minute, maybe a little bit more. And you can soak it when your band director is talking for a long time. Just re-soak the reed briefly, just dip it in, and then you're ready to go. But always be careful not to damage the reed. The reed has three parts, three main parts. It's got a lot of parts. Well, we'll talk about three main parts. It's got the cane, the thread, and the cork, or staple. We always want to hold the reed by the staple, or the cork part, because it's safe. That's right. We don't want to hold it by the thread or the cane because it could get damaged that way and you might accidentally rip something off. Okay, now we're going to talk about the mouth shape. Open your jaw so it's nice and relaxed, and then we're going to draw the lips closed as if it were a drawstring bag. Now we'll try that around the thread part of the reed, taking the whole cane part into the mouth. When that's easy, we can take a breath, place the reed in the mouth, draw the string, and blow through, finding the resistance of the reed to make the crow happen. The crow is just what the reed sounds like when there's no control over it. Notice that this reed has a crow that plays one or two sounds. You want to find reeds that crow like that because those will be the most stable reeds and the easiest to play. If you crow on your reed and it sounds really wild and there's lots of different notes in the crow, that's okay at the very beginning stages when you're first learning how to play, but it will not do for very long. So if you need a reed supplier, you can check out the description below. There's a link to oboefiles.com where you can buy some reeds that, well, I make them, so I feel like they're pretty good quality. Otherwise, leave in the comments below if you have another source for reeds. I love to know where people are getting reeds and what kind of reeds are out there that are any good, you know? If there's good reeds, I like to recommend them as well. We've got the crow under control. We found the resistance of the reed, which is the whole point of learning the crow. Now let's talk about the embouchure. Just remember again that the jaw should be relaxed and open, and that means that the bottom lip can curl over the bottom teeth to form a cushion, but that the control needs to come from the top lip coming down over the reed. Often, teachers will focus on getting a flat chin, and I feel like that comes when we get the other musculature activated. So activate the sides of your mouth inward and the top of your lip downward, and that usually takes care of the flat chin. If you need some syllables to practice, you can say the syllable oo, which gets the mouth forward and flexes those muscles as well. Or you can think of the French sound oo, 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 or higher pitched oo, or something like that, oo. And that really gets the front part of the lip flexed downward. You should really be able to see the musculature flex, and luckily I shaved recently, so it should be pretty visible. When that looks good, you can place the reed onto the lower lip, and then allow the top lip to come over onto the reed, and it's going to be slightly pushing downward and outward. If you've got control over the embouchure, you should be able to hold it with no hands without squeezing. Be careful because it might fall out of your mouth at first. Now when that feels comfortable, take a breath and then blow through the reed. You can try it with me, just rewind the video and try that again until that feels nice and comfortable and you're getting the embouchure to look correct. Alright, so we were able to blow through the reed and make a sound. That's awesome. Let's get the articulation to happen. On the oboe, the articulation happens when you release the tongue from the reed. So there needs to be a stage where we place the tongue onto the opening of the reed so that when we release it, we have control over when the sound is activated. You get used to the feeling of the tongue over the tip of the reed. We want to use just the tip of the tongue, not like anywhere in the middle, just the very tip of the tongue. So I'll count 1, breathe out, breathe in, place, and then release for the sound to come out. And that looks like this. 1. You can try that at home. Just rewind the video so you can kind of review it, or you can try it on your own. Just pause the video and give it a couple shots. When that feels comfortable, you're ready to re-articulate the note. You want to keep blowing and just re-approach the tongue. When the tongue is in a relaxed position, it's arched and the tip of the tongue is hanging out in the middle of the oral cavity and it comes forward onto the reed. I don't want to touch the reed, but like let's say my fingertips to the reed. Comes forward and touches the tip of the tongue to the tip of the reed. Lightly, and just barely interrupts the wind stream. Now eventually the breath and the placement of the tongue needs to happen in one beat, so on beat 4. But for now we'll do the whole process. So 1. Now you might want to try some different tonguing patterns, going back and forth, repeating after each other with a friend, or with your teacher, or with your student, or with your dog, and you can just kind of get used to how that feels. For example, repeat after me. Awesome. So you can kind of be creative, make up your own patterns, and then have the person repeat after you, and you go back and forth for days and get really strong at this. Now the moment we've all been waiting for, finally! We're going to put the reed into the oboe. Remember, you're holding it by the cork. And if you need cork grease, make sure you do it before you put it in the oboe reed well, because then it'll be really hard to take out if you haven't already put cork grease on it. The first note we're going to learn is the note B, and that is just one finger on the first key. Remember, we call it the B key. And make sure you're covering the hole on that key with your fingertip. Now, your thumb goes back here on the wood, and we don't want to squeeze anything. We just want to gently place it. I'll have what the note looks like on the staff and the fingering chart to my right. So again, we're not squeezing anything. Thumb back here. And we're just placing the finger on the key and covering the hole. Hopefully that was easy for you, because now we're going to learn the second note, and that's A. And that's just putting one more finger down on the next key and making sure you cover the holes. Otherwise, you get some wonky sounds. So make sure you cover the holes. Let's do some patterns back and forth. Repeat after me. Great. Hopefully you've got control over that. Practice with a friend, or you can practice by yourself, or with your teacher, or anyone who's willing to play with you, which should be anyone, really. And make sure you're being creative and using the notes that you know. The third note we're going to learn is G, and that's all 3 fingers down of the left hand and covering the holes. Make sure you cover the holes. Repeat after me. Awesome. Hopefully that was super easy for you. Now that you've learned your 3 notes, the next lesson we're going to learn a tune using those 3 notes. So, to make sure you don't miss a video, make sure you subscribe below and hit that like button if you got something out of this video. Now, oboe players are usually overachievers. So at the end of this video, we're going to put a duet of the tune that we'll learn in the next lesson. And if you want to try to figure it out by yourself, I think that's a great idea. Okay guys, thanks a lot for watching this tutorial video. And when in doubt, as always, play beautifully.